You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Welcome to the Alex Jones Show on this Monday, February 16th, 2015. I'm David Knight. I'll be your host today. Alex Jones will be joining us in the second hour. Also, another talk show host on a GCN program, The Power Hour. Joyce Riley will also be joining us in the second hour. Now, of course, Joyce Riley is a registered nurse, a whistleblower. She's been a talk show host speaking out for individual liberty for quite some time on GCN. She's going to be talking about her personal struggle with cancer, and that'll be in the second hour. And as I said, Alex Jones will be joining us at that time as well. Today, I want to focus on what I believe is an attack on the very foundations of our individual rights, of our legal system, in a way that is unprecedented. Of course, it's an incremental story. We've seen this happening for a long time, but it's really coming to a head in a major way. And we're seeing a lot of support from the media, from a lot of individuals. We had the story this last Friday from Kit Daniels about the Canadian mother who wrote this angry, uninformed straw man attack on people who don't give their informed consent to the pharmaceutical companies and the government. They're demanding that we do that without thinking. They're demanding the same kind of blind obedience to the government and to the pharmaceutical companies that they have. They don't want us to take a look at what's there. And so we're going to look at that as well as the attitudes that we're seeing surfacing in California. We've got the LA Times applauding Governor Jerry Brown, saying that he's showing new flexibility because he's considering mandatory vaccinations. Isn't that Orwellian new speak? Or maybe it's news speak when he starts talking about how they're going to take away people's personal belief exemptions. Do you understand how they twist the language to get what they want? We see this all the time as the statists, as the socialists try to move their agenda forward. You take something that was informed consent, the very basis of the Nuremberg Code, to try to prevent what we saw happening in concentration camps, the medical experimentation on individuals that we saw happening in Nazi Germany, in Japan, where they did horrible things to people and said, hey, it's for the greater good of mankind, because if I can experiment on these people over here, I may learn something that will help millions of people down the road. See, that's the way they move this ahead. They talk about the collective good, and they have absolutely no regard for individual rights. There was a pushback, of course, against that in the Nuremberg Code. People called it what it was. Medical tyranny. It's despicable. And we have to not let them railroad us into this. They're trying to drive us off the cliff in the same way that the Disney filmmakers drove the lemmings off the cliff. And so we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the Keystone Pipeline. It's back in the news again because, you know, the Republicans just keep voting on it. They passed it now the 10th time. And, of course, we have the Republican Senate passing that, as well as the House has been passing it as many times as they need to. Doesn't look like it's going to get past Obama, but there are some very serious issues here that go beyond the environmental issues. This goes to the essence of eminent domain and private property. Now, of course, we had the Supreme Court decision 10 years ago, Kello versus New London, essentially saying that one private organization could, with the government, come in and say, because my private use of this is going to be for the public good, more so than your private use is, I'm going to be able to take that property. And they supported that all the way to the Supreme Court. So what do we see now happening with the Keystone Pipeline? Now we have a foreign corporation, a Canadian corporation, coming in and telling people, in many cases who have had Nebraska farms for over 100 years, I'm sorry, your private property rights are not important. We're going to turn them over to a Canadian corporation. Do you understand how this is happening? And, of course, we've got Cuomo's son, talking about how our rights don't come from God. So your individual rights don't come from God. We don't need your consent either for government or for mandatory vaccines. This is the way the country falls. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The government's Department of Homeland Security is buying up loads of ammo. At the same time, they're restricting civilians' rights to own and purchase firearms. Can you put two and two together? Infidel Body Armor can stop every round, including hollow points and .308 sniper rounds, is reasonably priced and fully legal. But for how long? Go to InfidelBodyArmor.com, spelled INFIDEL bodyarmor.com. Infidel Body Armor just won't quit.
When cells become toxic, they die early and aging sets in. No one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. Just one of the key compounds, BioPQQ, is backed by major clinical studies. You want the best that's out there at the lowest price anywhere? We now have the synergistic solution. Secure your DNA force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. For all of recorded history, civilizations around the world praised the health benefits of silver. At InfoWars Life, our mission is to bring you the highest quality, purest, cleanest, effective colloidal silver on the market today for the lowest price available. You don't have to be a doctor to know. The fall and winter months are the most dangerous time of year in North America when it comes to you and your family's health. InfoWarsLife.com is very excited to announce our biggest run yet of Silver Bullet colloidal silver, exclusively available at InfoWarsLife.com. Now, InfoWarsLife.com has taken colloidal silver to the next level using a cutting-edge technique that is free of toxic artificial additives. Now more than ever, it's important to stock up on high-quality Silver Bullet from InfoWarsLife.com. No survival chest is complete without Silver Bullet. Secure your Silver Bullet today at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139. Silver Bullet. The month of February is all about Valentine's Day. Big heart-shaped boxes filled with delicious candy. What if we, the Patriots, hijacked Valentine's Day and instead made it about human liberty and individual empowerment? I'm all about human potential. I'm all about the individual being empowered. The establishment is the opposite. That's why they spike our water with fluoride and GMO, estrogen mimickers, and the rest of the garbage. InfoWars is striking back in the month of February with Human Empowerment Month. How we can come together and win the human race. And to celebrate the kickoff of Human Empowerment Month, we're slashing prices on InfoWarsLife.com products like Super Male and Super Female Vitality. The sale is only running for the month, 20% off, and there's a lot of other powerful specials at InfoWarsLife.com. InfoWarsLife.com, celebrating human potential in the month of February. Visit InfoWarsLife.com to find this special and many others in the month of February. Again, InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139.
Take you live to the Central Texas Command Center and the heart of the resistance. It's Alex Jones.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight. I'll be your host today, but Alex will be joining us in the second hour. Also joining us in the second hour will be Joyce Riley of the Power Hour, another GCN program. She's a registered nurse, a whistleblower. She's going to be on to talk about her personal struggle with cancer. So you don't want to miss this next hour. It's going to be a very powerful program that we have coming up with Alex Jones talking to Joyce Riley. Now, we see some news, of course, that's just broken today. It appears to be legitimate as far as I've seen. I haven't seen any analysis that would suggest otherwise. But a video purporting to show IS militants beheading 21 Egyptian hostages who were taken a few weeks ago. They were all laborers, and they were kidnapped by ISIS, and they show a mass beheading. And people are rightfully outraged, especially if this is true. We need to understand, however, before we get goaded into a war, that this organization was created, funded, trained by the American government, by the CIA. They were our proxies in Syria. This is something that has been going on throughout the Middle East, so things are not just as simple as they appear to be, unfortunately. And I think it's very important to go back and to look at the reaction of some of our Middle Eastern allies. Let's take the Turkish Prime Minister, Erdogan. Now, remember last week, there was the shooting in Chapel Hill. The question as to whether or not it was a hate crime directed against Muslims, since all three of the victims were Muslims, or was the guy just a liberal, Rachel Maddow-loving, gun-owning nut who shot these people? Of course, because he had a gun, the narrative out there was that he was some kind of a right-winger terrorist. He was nothing of the sort. This guy was a definitely, as I lived near that area in North Carolina, as most of the people in Chapel Hill and UNC are, he was a card-carrying liberal if there ever was one. But the bottom line is they pulled this back, and if it couldn't be a right-wing terrorist, then it just had to be a parking lot dispute, or whatever the case was. The Prime Minister of Turkey lectured Obama and said, if you stay silent on this, when faced with an incident like this and you don't make a statement, the world will stay silent towards you. And he says, I asked Mr. Obama, where are you, Mr. President? Well, I ask Mr. Erdogan, where are you, Mr. President? Have you spoken out against these 21 beheadings by ISIS? I haven't heard anything from that. It seems to be very selective. Clearly, there's no question if that video is real, what's going on there. There is a significant question as to whether or not that was a hate crime. If the guy shot 3 people, and there seems to be no question about that, isn't that enough? Of course, that's the issue with hate crimes. There's always some kind of alternative agenda that it's meant to serve, some kind of a divide and conquer agenda. It's enough if the guy shot 3 people to just get him for 3 counts of murder. I don't see why the hate crime issue is even important there. But if we're going to talk about doing something about these outrages that are being committed on film, whether they're staged, whether they're real, everybody appears, we've got a majority that wants to go to war, wants to put troops on the ground. We've got a 2/3 majority, according to a recent poll in America, that want to send troops on the ground to stop these videos that we see. Bear in mind that our closest ally in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, and they are our closest ally, is beheading 1 person every 4 days. 1 person every 4 days. So do the math. What ISIS just did on video, Saudi Arabia does in less than 90 days, on average. Yet they are our close allies. Why are they our close allies? Well, because of oil. Because, of course, the CIA can use them, our military-industrial complex can use them to continually have war in the Middle East, because that suits their purposes. Just imagine if we weren't such close allies with the Saudis, probably some high-ranking government officials would not have been able to sell oil futures short and make a fortune, which I don't have any evidence that anybody has done. But don't you think maybe there's some extra money in some of those Black Ops CIA funds? Don't you think that the Saudis, who are joined at the hip with the CIA, gave them an advance notice that they're going to dump the price of oil just by maintaining production where it was, because demand worldwide is falling so quickly? But of course, nothing to worry about there. We're told continually by this administration that everything is wonderful. The economy is doing great. We've got great employment figures, and every economic metric, as we were told at the State of the Union, Obama's recent State of the Union, every economic metric is up. Well, that simply isn't true. But if we're going to get so excited about these videos that we're going to go to war, because they've created other atrocities and tried to blame them on the other side, false flags that we saw happening in Syria a year ago, trying to goad the American public, trying to goad the West into an all-out war again. If we're going to do that, let's at least demand that our allies in Saudi Arabia, that our allies in Turkey stop this type of stuff. Maybe that would be a start. Now, the main thrust I want to talk about today is not that, however. I really want to talk about how things are falling apart in America, the means of the takedown of the American state. And, of course, this is an incremental story. This has been going on for a long time, but now we see the public joining in with strident claims that we have to get rid of individual liberty, that we have to get rid of informed consent. We see the LA Times talking about we're going to look at removing the personal belief exemption. So that's the way they twist the language of informed consent. They don't want to say, we're going to move to stop informed consent at last.